A battle over how the internet is governed is beginning to look a bit like a Cold War flashback. A meeting of the UN's International Telecommunications Union in Dubai broke down this morning without updating the 24-year-old agreement that governs how electronic data flows across borders. The U.S. and Russia and a lot of other folks are on opposite sides of the debate, and Craig Timberg is here to explain what the dynamics are, what each side is saying. I kind of made this Cold War comparison, but the sides are kind of hard to easily delineate.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. and many of its traditional allies are on one side. On the other side, you have Russia, China, and a variety of Arab states. And the debate at its most fundamental level is whether the internet remains as it is today, with different elements controlled by different entities and really, in a fundamental way, not really controlled by anybody, or whether it falls under some degree of governmental control.
So the U.S. has kind of couched their opposition in human rights terms, freedom of expression terms, but there's also a financial reason for their opposition.
That's right. I mean, so when you think about it, this treaty was going to update a treaty that was written back when everyone communicated on telephones. And telephones were an incredibly lucrative business for a long time. If I picked up the phone today or not today, but if I picked up the phone 20 years ago and called Egypt, some telephone company in Egypt was going to make a lot of money. Some of that was going to get taxed and remitted to the Egyptian government, right? That's not how it works. If I want to call someone in Egypt, I Skype them. I might even Skype them from my iPhone. So the revenue is really drained out of international telecommunications in a way that affects governments, affects these telecommunications companies, which in many cases are owned in part by government officials. So it's easy to see why people would want to get their hands on all of this money flowing through the internet.
Yeah, and I guess the thing I kind of wanted to tease out was whether it's the governments or the companies based in those countries, the U.S. is making more of a freedom of expression argument, but there's also a lot of U.S. corporations with financial interests.
Yeah, that's right, and it's rare that you see such a unanimity of opinion on any issue in our country, right? I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats and the White House and Congress and, Google and the people who are regulating Google and Facebook and the people who are regulating, I mean, it's like they got together and sang Kumbaya to the rest of the world. It was an extraordinary show of unanimity when you think about it.
Yeah, the U.S. House had a unanimous vote saying that we shouldn't ratify this.
Right. I mean, I guess on one level, as a journalist, I'm a little bit frightened when everybody agrees on something like that, just because you sort of wonder what's going on. But I think on balance, it's hard not to feel good about the position the U.S. took, which was, let's keep the internet as free as possible. Let's not do anything that expands the powers of governments and the taxing authorities of governments that may in fact not be in the interest of their own citizens.
So where does this leave the regulation of the internet?
Yeah, back to where it was, which is a variety of non-profit standard-setting groups around the world that have owned different pieces of it. Some of them are in the U.S., some of them aren't, and it is kind of in a fundamental way an ungoverned space, which is not to say that governments don't have a footprint, right? I mean, if you're a child pornographer, the FBI is going to find you. They have a lot of power to do that sort of thing. If you're a dissident in Syria, right? I mean, there's lots of things governments can do, but there's not kind of a single regulatory kind of architecture that controls everything about it. And I think that's the way most people want it at this point.
And the way it'll remain for now. Craig, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.